All right, time to call this meeting to order. How many people back there are still waiting for the form to fill out for public comment? Raise your hand, please. Four is what I see. Is that correct? Five over there. All right. We're going to add 5 more public comments to it when they get the forms. And we'll go from there. Hey, are you ready for a roll call? Hi, Brett.
All right. Jeff Musall,
Here.
Kit Johnson,
Here.
Alan Halstead,
Here.
Brett Beach,
Here.
Bill Rosshacker,
Here.
Ken Summers. Nope. And Mary's not here.
Second. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Our next order of business is to elect a new chair. So do we have nominations?
I nominate Ken Summers.
I second.
Been moved and seconded to elect Ken Summers. He cannot come to the meeting.
That's right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. What's that, Ken? So at this point, Doug, we do not need to go any further. We can go ahead and open the meeting at this point.
Mr. Chair, our next piece is the report on the final disposition of past actions. That'll be brief. So that's item number 6 on your agenda. So in your packet, you have a copy of the approved Newberg Urban Area Growth Management Agreement that you all worked on, has been approved by the City Council and the Board of Commissioners. And then the Newberg Urban Area Management Commission bylaws were updated. So that was approved by the City Council and the Board of Commissioners as well. So those are the most current documents. They were 40 years old. And we got to the point with the commission's assistance to updating all of that.
We do not need to vote on that. That's
No.
just the final report. All right. We have nothing on the docket. So where we were when we left off at the last meeting is we had closed public comments. And the council, the committee asked staff to make a recommendation, an alternate recommendation, so that we would have our choice to either deny or approve, which they have done. And that's where we come today. So if anybody doesn't object on the council, I think it's appropriate to reopen public comments. We have a lot here. That's 18 people, if my count is correct. So we're going to keep our comments to 2 minutes per person. After that, we'll move on. Is that okay with everybody on the council? All right. That being said,
We need to move a motion to reopen the hearing.
So you had where you left off is you had a continued hearing. You had taken testimony. You had closed public testimony. You were in deliberations, and as the chair had indicated, you had asked staff to come back with a report for approval of the proposal. So that has been prepared. You should also note in the denial staff report, based upon all the comments from the hearing in November, there's a bunch of additional attachments that refer to past urban reserve area designation on a portion of the site, references to the city's larger urban reserve area program, which went through the city council, went to the Board of Commissioners, went to the Department of Land Conservation, and Development. The director remanded that back to the city. It was appealed by a variety of parties. If I remember right, it was 4. That went to the Land Conservation and Development Commission, and that was remanded back. And so all of those documents are in your packet, both in your denial and your approval. To be a little bit of a conservationist, I did not include all of the attachments in the approval version. I referred back to the denial version. They're exactly the same attachments. But instead of 1,000 pages, I didn't want to make it 2,000 pages.
So at this point, I declare, we're opening the public comments. The first person is Kurt Knightley. I believe he's online. Pete? Oh, okay. Kurt Knightley.
Better. I've lived in the Greens for 10 years in concert with many of my neighbors and in conversations with many of my neighbors. We have decided that we're opposed to this land use action. My neighbors on Wood Court, Fairway Street, Link Court, and independent folks I've talked to in the last several months have all been opposed primarily for safety reasons. We don't want to see the Greens Boulevard turn into a throughway because of the cut through that's supposed to happen with this construction. We're also very concerned about our only single ingress and egress into the Greens if there's an emergency. And if we have a larger emergency than a single fire, we may not be able to get people out and vehicles in. So we already know that the city planner has already advised against this expansion. And I've been asked by many people I've talked to say, why has this gone on? So there are still a lot of questions. But as I said, the additional traffic in the Greens is going to create a further problem with people in the Greens, and people with children in the Greens are very concerned. Thank you very much.
While you're there real quick, I got a question. So when you say neighbors, do you have a rough number of how many neighbors?
Somewhere between 20 and 25, 30. I do some walking and riding bicycle. And earlier this in the cycle, I was in the Small Greens Committee that addressed these issues. And in that small committee, we had all talked about the same kind of safety issues. So we had all talked to different people throughout the different parts of the Greens.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Dorothy. I'm going to say roll off. Roll hold. Thank you.
My comments were prepared for a 5-minute time period, so I'll try to really scale it down here. My name is Dorothy Roholt. My husband and I live directly north of the subject land between Adlin Way and Shod Road. We are opposed to the expansion of the urban growth boundary based on a number of factors. One being that this is exclusive farm use land, that it's stated that it's not agricultural land, but we've lived there for 33 years and have seen a crop taken from the Bel Airs property each year by the prior owner. And the Bel Airs also cut and baled hay last year. And on the Bestwick farm, it's been 30, 40 years that they've had cattle there, and cattle were on the property last year grazing, and then I assume went to market. And so it is agricultural land, even though there's statements to the contrary. We have concerns about the water supply. There would be an additional reservoir that'd be necessary. Where's that going to be located? How large? Could it be disruptive to the Greens property? Stormwater is an issue already with additional people there. The stormwater plan isn't adequately addressed. The water flows over the highway as it is, and it's not really worked through at this time. So that would be an additional problem if the fields are not there to absorb stormwater. Wastewater also is an issue, because although the report talks about the wastewater going down Fernwood Road on the conduits to a pump station, there's a hill between the property and the pump station. So probably an additional pump station would have to be put in. But the biggest concern I have is regarding traffic. Fernwood Road, Corral Creek Road are the arterials through that area. They're already absorbing a lot of traffic from Upper Parrot Mountain roads. We've had additional development that's gone in for the Adlin Way and for the Greens since any traffic study was done. We have numerous accidents. We've lived there, like I said, 33 years, and in that time we've seen a lot of traffic that's ended up with vehicles.
Please wrap
in
up your time.
my time, a lot of wrecks. So maybe we could have a continuance just based on the transportation plan that's missing.
Well, this one looks like Matt. Is there a? What? Can you help me out here?
Mark Allerson, Marl? Marlin, what? Yes, Marla Larson,
Ah, Marla Larson.
sorry.
Is that,
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Marla Larson, and I am here on behalf of myself and my sisters who have a vision for the future of Newberg, Oregon. We are currently working on a rezoning development project for a piece of land that is perfectly situated to meet the needs of the community. First and foremost, because of my age, there's a high demand for single level dwellings, and definitely it's something I want, and it would be nice to have a lot more choices in that area. It's currently zoned for farmland, but it's not used as much for farmland. It could be very easily developed into some housing that's also very much needed. This land was zoned for development many years ago. In fact, in 2008, my parents got a letter from the city that they owed $171,000 for road rezoning and updates and sewer and water, and everything went through. We came to a meeting and said, look, we can't come up with $171,000 to pay this. And they said, well, as soon as we get it into the city, then there were different, I don't remember all what was said. And then we never heard another word, and it was never put into the city. So at one time they did think it was a great idea, and they did want it to be in the city. We believe that this project and what it can bring to the community, and we hope that you do too. Also, I'd like to make a comment about the traffic. I've not seen accidents out there on Fernwood Road, but I'm surprised because that road is completely safe for people who travel between 35 and 40 miles an hour, not people who drive 60 miles an hour. And I've sat on my porch many times and seen people going by at 60, and that's not safe. But it's not because the road is not safe, it's because people aren't driving safe. And so it is a narrow road, and then at nighttime, you do have to drive a little slower, but it can be very safe if you drive in a safe manner. Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have Linda Hanson.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. I just really like to say I'm obviously all for the development. I think that the rezoning project is prime property for Newberg. I'd really like to ask everybody to keep an open mind for the future of Newberg. I think last time I mentioned the amount that the city's grown compared to the rest of the states. I went to the League of City meetings, spoke with a lot of the city's different mayors, and they just have abundant plans to develop. So the lack that we've seen in Newberg has been a little bit problematic when we know that there's needs for a specific demographic. Also what it would do for property taxes, just taxes in general, right? Revenue for small businesses. So I just like to ask for everybody to keep an open mind there. I mentioned that it would provide a need for a certain demographic. I think that would be a very valuable addition to the community. I also think it's really, really important to think about who owns the property and whose opinion matters most, and who's put hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to further what they believe is an improvement on the community. If somebody's giving you an opinion on a possession that they don't own, I mean, how would you guys feel if somebody showed up to your front door right now and said they don't like the color of your door? I mean, that's kind of how we feel. And the irony of the people who live in the greens who say they don't want it developed when they knocked down a bunch of historic oak trees and the field was the exact same property as the one that abuts them. I think that's very ironic for them to say they don't support the development when they're enjoying a home that developed the same type of land that we're sitting on. So that's all I got to say. Thank you guys so much for your time. I know you've spent so much on it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Belair.
So you called some people that they're the applicant team, so we should be entitled to rebuttal and closing arguments at the end.
How do you figure?
Because we're the applicant and under state law and the commission's rules, we're entitled to rebuttal and closing arguments. And under ORS 197-797, after the close of record, we're still entitled to final written legal argument. So.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
If you take your seat, then we'll put you at the end.
Oh, I'm Joe Gay on Schwab, from Schwab Williamson and Wyatt. I am land use counsel for the applicant team. So yeah,
Okay,
that's not me, but
looks like Reed Stapleton.
Sam, I'm also with the applicant team.
Chris Cook.
Thank you for your time. My name's Chris Cook. I live in the Greens neighborhood. My property backs up to Fernwood, so it's one of the biggest concerns I have is traffic, obviously. But also that my number one concern is, do we really need this property brought in? City's own study says that we have more than enough property in the reserve to get us through 2040. So we're gonna bring in an area that we don't need. Spend money on infrastructure the money that the state, I don't know if the city and county have it, but the state certainly does because they can't even finish the bypass. So I would have to say when the 412 acres at Springbrook and Bell are developed, well, maybe we could look at this property, but that makes no sense at the present time. I feel at the present time, we have more questions to ask about this than anything else. The staff recommended a no vote before. Has that changed since the last meeting? If so, was it due to the report that we had, the 1,000-page report done by the Belairs, by the Dow Corporation? Are we going to have an independent study done to, non-biased report done that the staff can look at and make a recommendation then? There's too many questions on this property and this project. But I think a no vote at this time is probably the best thing to do. Come back 10 years from now to see where our city is at and if we really need this property. Thank you for your time.
I'm betting you're related. We have Kathy Cook.
You won that bet. I also reside on Fairway Street in the Greens, and I thank you for this opportunity. If I get past the 2-minute mark, I'll send you the rest of my comments. I stand in opposition to this proposal as I believe there are far too many loose ends surrounding it. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I ask you to please provide a continuance to allow interested parties enough time to digest this 1,000+ page latest iteration of the report on this proposal. I think it's every citizen's responsibility to exercise forward thinking in this decision and account for the public safety of those who live and travel in this area, not only by car, truck, and farm vehicle, but motorcycle, bicycle, and foot traffic as well. Fernwood Road is in our backyard, and every time I see cyclists, joggers, dog walkers pass by, I say a little prayer that they don't get injured. I also ask for divine intervention when irresponsible drivers speed up and down the hill, which is a continual occurrence. So additional traffic on these roads is unthinkable. Along the same lines, it's difficult for me to understand the rules stating that traffic through the area is not a consideration when determining whether or not this should become part of the URA? Are we not putting the cart before the horse here? It seems to me that common sense dictates we consider the impact of the development of this land upon this mainly rural area and the havoc it will cause for the residents and farmers. I would like to point out that at the January meeting, the applicant's representatives, whom I hope have 2 minutes for their rebuttal, made a statement to the effect that no farming has taken place on this land for about 100 years. At least that is what I heard as I sat in the meeting room. There have been cows grazing and hay harvested there every year I've lived in the Greens. And is the change in this designation truly needed at this time? Isn't there enough land currently within the UGB URA for additional housing? I want to echo the comments of those who have mentioned the construction of the bypass, because as we all know, it's at a standstill. There's no money for that. And I guess I'll just send you the rest of my comments.
Thank you.
But I thank you for your kind consideration and the inordinate amount of time that you all have spent considering this. I don't think it's progress.
Next will
think
be
it's a
Dana
reversal.
Farber.
Can y'all hear me? I'm a homeowner along with my husband. We live off Corral Creek Road. We're very concerned about the potential addition of more than 300, on the way to 400 housing units currently proposed along Fernwood and Corral Creek Road, with the addition of at least that many motorists, maybe double that, traveling along these roads. I'm assuming that many of the new drivers would be trying to get to work or to school in Portland or in many of the nearby communities such as Beaverton. They would likely try to access Highway 99. Currently, from the area of proposed development, there are only two routes that would offer access, one via Fernwood, which is a less direct route going past the golf course, and a four-way stop, requiring drivers to yield to golf carts, and with a number of signal lights and stop sign lights that would slow down anyone trying to get to work or school or activities. The other route is along Corral Creek Road, a two-lane road with mostly zero shoulder, designed for occasional rural drivers and winding by residences. Anyone traveling this road frequently knows how hazardous it is to encounter drivers who are exceeding the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. Rounding a corner, that oncoming car will likely be in your lane rather than being in someone's yard. And I will add that if we have a lot of 20-somethings, 30-somethings, late to work, whatever, they may not pay attention to the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Additionally, the two access points to Highway 99 from Northeast Corral Creek Road are very narrow. One of them on Veritas is little more than a ramp and cannot accommodate two full-size vehicles at the same time. Want to get south to McMinnville on Highway 99? You must cross two lanes of highway immediately and be up to speed for the southbound traffic on 99. I believe the addition of hundreds of motorists trying to access Highway 99 in a variety of weather conditions is a recipe for serious accidents. And if the city of Newberg is interested in widening Corral Creek, either the proposed development must give up land on its side of the road, or the city would have to take property from private landowners on the other side. Improving Corral Creek to accommodate that much additional traffic would be very expensive, complex, and litigious.
Wrap it up, please.
Thank you.
Next, we have Joseph. I'm gonna say Gaon. Oh, he's with the, okay. Roger Coleman.
Is that Hughes, Joseph Hughes?
No.
Thank you. I'm Roger Coleman. My wife was with me. We are residents of the Greens, been following this project for a number of years. I was really concerned when I read the memorandum from Doug Rex and Ken Friday dated March 28th, 2023, which states that at the January 24th, 2023 public hearing, Newmac requested that an alternate staff report be prepared that approves the applicant's request to amend the urban reserve area boundary. Staff should prepare a report based upon their investigation of the rules, information submitted, and their professional knowledge on an issue. If the commission has a concern about some of the staff, they should raise those and direct staff to address those concerns, but not direct them to write an approval. In addition, the commission should provide sufficient time and notice to the public to review and comment on the information provided before the commission decides on an issue. Staff, the latest report, staff approval appears to be based on a possible need to include additional property in urban reserve area based on studies on future needs of up to 30 years from now. It does not appear necessary for the commission to decide those future needs currently. There are many proposed changes in the Oregon law in the works that would have significant impact on land use issues directly relating to building and density. Making unnecessary decisions on the urban reserve area additions would be damaging to the residents of Newberg and Yamhill County. The commission should not rush into the decision on this issue. Suggest that the commission consider continuance to allow for public review and more comment on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's Joe Hughes.
I'm Joe Hughes. In case you were wondering, for the past 52 years, my family has owned and farmed a 44-acre puzzle tree farm on the corner of Corral Creek and Shad Road, directly across from the subject property on Corral Creek. To start with, I want to request a continuance of this hearing based on the voluminous 1,000-page application for which the applicant has had months to prepare and for which we, the public, have had little time to review and comment. If staff finds a continuance unacceptable, I request that we are allowed as an alternate sometime 2 weeks or so to leave the record open to allow time to thoroughly read, understand, and comment on the application. We object to this proposal to extend the URA boundary for many reasons: legal, environmental, and of course, emotional. As you can see, my neighbors have raised many issues, all of which I agree with. Rather than risk redundancy, I'll briefly address my submittal. It's a 5-page account of some of the deficiencies of the current application. Due to time constraints, we've only hit some highlights. Between 2002 and 2009, previous ownership of 2/3 of this same property attempted to bring it into the URA. After several years, this proposal was rejected by the DLCD in 2009 and by Newberg in 2007. And I've got attachments with you, which you have to back that up. In the time since then, many of the conditions and concerns remain unchanged. Traffic, safety, narrow roads, intersection of Highway 99 and Corral Creek, water, sewer, storm resources, and of course, valuable farmland. At the time this thing was shot down in the early 2000s, sort of the coup de grace on the expansion was from ODOT, and they decreed that nobody's going to put any more traffic on Corral Creek and Highway 99 intersection until we redo that intersection. People are being killed there, and we're absolutely against that expansion of the URA. And that, in my recollection of it, was the kind of the final blow that stopped that application. Okay. The DLCD says a priority for bringing land into URA is intentionally weighted to avoid development of resource land, particularly valuable farm land. If you'll read my letter, it'll explain this in detail. Another critical factor is statewide planning goal 14.
Joe, I have a question for you.
14 has not been addressed, and then I'm done.
You have testified in front of this committee on this subject before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is not a new issue. A lot of people have just become aware of this issue, but this has been going on for quite some time. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Cole Prestis.
How's that? Okay, all right. As I said, I'm co-president of the Lad Hill Neighborhood Association. We represent over 600 families just east of Newberg. And we do not support, the neighborhood association does not support this proposed urban reserve expansion. I hope you do take the time to read our letter. I don't have time to read the whole thing, but I'd like to bring out a few important points. The applicant's engineering report minimizes and remains silent on the extensive private and public utility infrastructure improvements that are actually needed to develop this piece of property into urban cityscape. In addition to that, the public stormwater service connection proposed by the applicant is illegal. Doug just passed out to you a copy of the Oregon drainage law, and the applicant's proposal actually is contrary to the first two of the three main basic elements of Oregon drainage law. And that is that it's illegal to reroute or redirect stormwater from one drainage basin to another drainage basin. That's exactly what this proposal is recommending. It doesn't tell you about the hill that is between the low point on Fernwood Road, where this entire application drains to, and where it wants to put the storm drain. By proposing to go over the hill, they're putting it in a different drainage basin. That's illegal. Not only that, it's diverting water from over a mile of downstream to the south, and the agricultural land there needs that water. It recharges people's wells.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Paulson.
First off, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Dawn Paulson and I live in the Greens. I'm speaking tonight to ask the committee to deny the application by Brian and Kathy Belair's and Bestwick LLC to include the subject properties in the Newberg Urban Reserve area. Bottom line, there are many properties more suitable to bring into the urban reserve area before this one. The reason for this has been consistently correct each time someone has applied to bring this property into the urban reserve area. It is not consistent with the urban reserve rule, which is OAR 660-021-0030, and it contradicts the comprehensive plan urbanization goal number 14, which is to provide for the orderly and efficient transition from rural to urban land uses. There are much more reasonably suited areas that should be a higher priority for inclusion than this one. This site consists of 89% high quality production class 1, 2, and 3 soils. Again, the urban reserve rule states that lower quality soils classified as 4 or higher are prioritized over inclusion over higher quality soils class 1, 2, and 3. It's important we remember the purpose of our exceptional Oregon land use laws, which in part were created to protect our high quality farmlands such as these exclusive farm use designated resource lands. I'd also like to highlight goal 4 policy Q in the city of Newberg order number from 2007, which was also a denial to include this property within the urban reserve area. At that time, the city agrees not to approve expansion of the Newberg urban growth boundary or urban reserve areas around the East Newberg or Oregon 219 interchanges until the IAMPs, which are interchange area management plans for the 2 interchanges, are prepared and adopted by ODOT, Yamhill County, and the city of Newberg. This is still wise advice today. Without a plan for putting in an additional 400 households onto Highway 99 and with a future bypass phase in the area, it would be dangerous and irresponsible to overlook this issue. I'm not against progress or growth of our city in any way, but it would be a poor decision to include this land in the Newberg Urban Reserve area. It's still not the right time.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Vance Stimler.
Good evening and thank you. I'd like to request a continuation. I haven't had an opportunity to review the materials. I live adjacent to the property. for all the reasons have been stated earlier, and since there's a lack of time, I don't think that there's been an opportunity to review the wastewater. And I know this is the urban reserve and the belief that this has no impact, but it's just one step closer to development. I don't believe that development is responsible in that area. When the report that was provided that I was able to review before when I testified, that there's other urban reserve property that grounds or that is more readily available in the city, and the city is meeting the needs up to 2041, which means there's plenty of time to make this decision. The wastewater and other issues that people have brought up, but I also want to add that if it is into urban reserve, it'll be more quickly into the urban growth boundary. Not only traffic to 99, but I believe traffic to I-5 is going to be impacted as well, and the people live on Rennie Road. The belief that people will go around just because Fernwood's more developed than Corral Creek is false, and that's often used as an excuse to why it's okay to build several houses. At the last hearing, the applicant said that he wants to build a lot of affordable housing, single level housing, but his proposal has a lot of high density, which I think adds to a lot of traffic and infrastructure problems such as police, fire, city services that won't be able to keep up with the development of this size in that area. So I'd like to, again, request a continuance to be able to review the material. Thank you.
Okay, we have two applications or two from the Bel Airs folks. So you have 4 minutes. Oh, we have another one back there. John Clemens.
My name is Don Clements. I live at 305 Lindquist Court, Newberg, Oregon. Many years ago, 1998 to 2000, I was on the Springbrook specific plan. That was the plan that built the greens and that whole development. Prior to that, Newmac and the city council heard just what you're hearing tonight. I respect all the people that testified. I think they have concerns. I can understand that, and I know that you do. But at the same time, I want to give a little bit of history in that in 1998 to 2000, when we did the Springbrook specific plan, it didn't start until roughly 2005 and didn't really get going to 2008. We're here today. We have the same situation. I supported the Greens. I supported that development, just as I also feel that we need additional land. We must have land. If we don't have it, we can't develop. There's people that are wanting homes. And if we don't have it, we can't develop. I realize about roads, about safety, but we can do another specific plan, just like we did with Springbrook. We can address all those issues and we can move on. Communities don't usually stay the same. It's very difficult to stay the same. If you stay the same, you kind of die. You wither away. You either grow and grow properly. And I'm not opposed to anything said here tonight. I think those people have a concern. So I'll just end it with that. Thank you.
You don't look like Paul Schultz. Scheitz, thank you.
The paperwork, I guess, got lost. Well, I've never really done this before, but I'm going to read from what Sally's over there. And Sally and I have lived live on 11675 Northeast Anna Drive. since.
Pull the mic a little
Go ahead.
closer to you,
Oh,
please.
sorry. And the traffic is horribly maintained. A gravel road and it's quadrupled over the years with vehicles, trucks, trailers going in excess of 45 miles an hour, which I have a reading type piece of equipment to verify their speeds. We have physically stepped and in front of speeding vehicles in the middle of the road so that we could be, they would be forced to slow down so we can walk our 3 dachshunds and we wouldn't be run over. And we're also, during the summer, we have to inhale all of their dust. All this is true above, including Shad Road, Old Parrot Mountain Road, Corral Creek Road, Fernwood, and Anna Drive. If you allow 377 more houses to be built, there will be hundreds of vehicles, all of which cannot be supported by the roads if this project is allowed. We have not addressed how this will affect our water, wells, and our safety. How is the fire department and law enforcement going to handle all the added load? This past summer, our 91-year-old mother wandered off of our 3-acre property while we were home. When we called the sheriff, he apologized because they were too busy with an accident at 99 Devil and couldn't get back to us, which they did not. It finally turned out after 2 hours to be okay. The road department stated that they have would pave Anna Drive and possibly Shad Road when no more houses can legally be built on the roads. This is true currently and nothing has been done. Traffic on 99 going south or north can't handle the traffic now, so it flows into the side streets, country roads, and gravel. Okay, thank you.
All right, we have 4 minutes for the Bestwick folks to make a rebuttal. Is there anybody, are you?
Yeah, I emailed a comment.
Yeah, those have been entered into record, will be entered into record, and we don't typically read them.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Good evening, Joe Gay on Schwabe, Williamson and Wyatt, counsel for the applicant. I just want to clear up a couple misconceptions about this application. We've heard quite a bit of testimony tonight about rezoning UGBs, and the only thing the applicant is requesting is for this land to be included in the urban reserve area. And what that does is it provides the city additional flexibility if and when they decide to expand their UGB and bring this land into city limits. We've heard about transportation issues, stormwater issues. None of those are actually criteria for inclusion of the land within the URA. The city is going to have ample time to review any transportation impacts, any stormwater impacts when development is actually proposed for this application. There is no development proposed with this URA expansion. There is no development proposed at this time. We've heard some requests for continuances. I just want to make clear, Dowell did not submit, nor did the applicant submit any additional information after the close of the public hearing in November. There have been talks about 1,000-page reports. That 1,000-page report was prepared by staff and was requested to be prepared by this commission. One of the last thing I just want to bring up before Reed talks about a couple of traffic issues is the reports and the staff reports identify that the land needs are met through 2041. But what it doesn't address is that the city's urban growth boundary only extends out through 2025. The city is going to have to update that in the very near term and in the very near future. And when that gets updated, the city is going to be required to bring lands into the urban reserve area through 2055. And the applicant has spent an enormous amount of time, an enormous sum of money to do a lot of the reports that the city would be required to do. And I don't think it's in dispute that the city does have a need for additional land in their URA through 2051.
Thanks, Joe. So, notwithstanding what Joe is stating, that this is not a UGB expansion request, this is an urban reserve request. and there's no immediate development proposed. This just puts the site in the realm of consideration for the next UGB expansion. There were comments that sort of fast forwarded the track, looking at site-specific issues, including traffic. We heard comments about concerns about safety and cut-through traffic through the greens. I wanted to point out a couple of things. One is that when the greens development was approved, there was actually a condition of approval to provide a secondary access to the east to Corral Creek Road. That has never been constructed. In recognition of that fact, there's a TSP project, E19, that stipulates a future connection from the northeast corner of the greens to Corral Creek Road. That would in and of itself be required to be constructed through the exclusive farm use land. That would require a goal exception. By having this site in the URA and potentially in the future UGB, it would provide the opportunity to provide that connection, to provide a relief valve for people within the greens to exit. Yes, and so I wanted to point that out. Lastly, I'll leave a brief moment here for Brian Belair, the applicant, to speak.
Yeah, last page.
Just the very last.
Very last page.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Brian Belair. First of all, thank you for letting me be here. The narrow question before the committee is whether this land should be in the urban reserve boundary. The simple answer to the question is the city has already done a ton of work, and the city, Newmac, and Yamhill County has all concluded most definitely and voted unanimously that this land should be included in the urban reserve. When the city did a massive visionary study going back to 2003, they said that this land was very valuable to the city because it is not farmland. It's currently a very poor use of land. It's 90 acres that's just a field, and its highest and best use, according to the planners, the city of Newberg planners, was for a complete development, one where you can build houses and recreation and parks. Not my findings, that was the city of Newberg's findings. So Newmac took the recommendation and voted that this property be included. This is not going to build a house. This is not going to add any traffic to Corral Creek. The last thing I want to say, if you'll look at the map in front of us, you'll see our land in the yellow box, and you'll see an arrow pointing to
In fairness to
another
everybody else,
area,
we
which
cut
is
them
the
off.
greens.
Thank you. We cut everybody else
I'm
off.
just 30 more seconds. You will
Please.
see.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Actually, public comment. And Doug, item from staff is the next thing on the agenda. Do you have anything to say about this matter?
Mr. Chair, at this point, it's deliberations amongst the commission members for you to make a decision. You've had some questions about continuance. You've had one about leaving the record open. Always as a reminder is that there is a shot clock, a time clock. The applicant has continued and extended that clock to get to where we're at this evening. There was the request to leave the record open, so you could leave the record open for 7 days to allow written testimony to be brought in or submitted to staff. That would then provide the opportunity for the applicant for 7 days to respond and submit written testimony. And that would mean you would continue this hearing until April 25th to make a decision.
And that doesn't bring us up against our 120 days.
That you would need to have a question asked of the applicant about that, because it would push us, they've extended it out to get us to this evening. And so this would be up to the chair if he wanted to open it up, testimony again to allow the legal counsel for the applicant to respond to that comment.
You're telling me we have to open public comment again to get an answer from
Yes.
the attorney? Are there any ramifications other than, can we close it right back up?
You can close it right back up.
All right, we're gonna reopen public comment.
I just want to clarify, there's no clock here. So there is no, we don't have to extend anything.
So are you, okay, thank you. So we close public comment. At this point, gentlemen, what do you think?
To submit any written testimony. The further 7 days after that, for the applicant doing the written testimony.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, so is there no time clock, Doug? There's no 120 days?
Well, it's been some discussions as we worked on this one, because it's a type 3, it's processed as a type 3 application. Because it was property specific. It was a limited number of properties. We've had conversations with the legal counsel from the applicant before, who have indicated that they believe there is not a clock. And so this is kind of a legal question. And we don't have our legal counsel here this evening. But if the applicant is willing to say that there's not a clock, we can proceed forward. And they've made that statement.
If Alan wants to make the motion again, I'll second it.
7 days for the opponents.
7 for comment, 7 days.
Comments only, not additional 7 days for the applicant. Would that be opponents and supporters?
It would be for anyone to submit
Calendar days or working days?
calendar days. Commissioner, I might also add that you would want to add to that motion to continue the hearing to April 25th, 7 PM here at the Public Safety Building.
So that's one motion, not two separate motions? Okay. So it's been moved.
Second.
Stand seconded. Basically what we're saying is we're gonna bring this back in the next meeting on April the
25th.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So that concludes our items for today. We'll adjourn the meeting.